Greetings and welcome to the Roundtable reaction to Amazon's supplement regulatory requirements. We're honored to have with us three industry leaders to get a reaction and insights into what could either be deemed a long overdue change or an overreach by one of the world's largest retailers, Amazon, with regards to the dietary supplement requirements they've just rolled out. With us today, we have TJ Gupta, CEO of TagOne, former SAP executive, longtime expert in tech traceability, who started his expertise in the pharmaceutical sector, is now bringing those traceability technology, blockchain solutions to the supplement and food industries. We also have with us Elon Sugberg, CEO of Alchemist Labs, longtime dietary supplement thought leader, overseeing one of the top global accredited testing labs. And last but not least, Dr. Anand Swarup, CEO of CFAM, holds a PhD in chemistry and has developed, manufactured, imported nutraceutical ingredients for more than 35 years. So real quick, this new requirement for Amazon could be the start of a huge ripple across the industry. Previously, anybody could essentially go up and sell a dietary supplement on their platform, but now companies are going to be required to gain approval from Amazon, and that means they need to submit a valid certificate of analysis by an accredited laboratory, so no more internal tests, submit high-quality product images along with a letter of guarantee from their contract manufacturer, which has to show the product was manufactured using GMPs or good manufacturing practices listed under 21 CFR 111. So, Anand, starting with you, when you first heard this big news, what was your initial response? What did you think?
I just thought, it's about the time. It's about the time, dietary supplement industry has been evolving over the years, and we have been following GMPs. We are under total purview of FDA. We have internal policing where we look at our own quality standards and other things. And it was about time that the biggest seller place was start implementing the basic rules of good manufacturing, because selling dietary supplement basically is a bond of trust between a seller and a buyer. And if this bond is not backed by hard data, what we've got left to show?
Yep. Elon, what did you think?
To echo Anand's stance on the matter, I thought it's about time. I think it's a great movement to push the tolerance for substandard quality in a better direction. I think that they started off with some unreasonable requirements, and now that they've changed those, I think unfortunately it's still moving in the right direction, but it has a lot of opportunity for improvement. And I asked the question to the whole industry, like, what can we do to prevent another Confidence USA type of situation? And my answer is Amazon's new requirements are not going to stop it, nor are current GMPs. I mean, they slipped through, they will slip through again with the current requirements. But still, my overall statement is good job, Amazon. Good job, people at Amazon. Right direction. Let's keep going.
Are there some areas that you guys feel like that it falls short? So talk a little bit about those.
Testing by input is a huge target for me. It's you shouldn't, first of all, just like you can't sell champagne that's not from Champagne, you shouldn't be able to use the word testing when testing is actually done, because this is the equipment for testing by input. It's called a calculator. Mm-hmm. It's not an HPLC or HPTLC or anything. It's not an FTIR. It's basically recalculating someone else's calculations, because there's this slippery slope, a logical fallacy that if you have a product with two or more ingredients, well, there's no USP method, there's no AOAC method, obviously, because it's your product. Therefore, you can't test it, which is false. And then you can result or go back towards the slippery slope of testing by input. So a lot of companies are going to do that because they can, and no one's going to challenge them. And the folks at Amazon are not experienced enough to read a C of A or a product label to know whether a method is available for that or not. So that is not testing. That is not quality assurance. That's just basically covering Peter's calculations by Sam. And Peter and Sam are colleagues. They work in the same place. And then someone else now just basically redoes those calculations. It doesn't ensure quality in any way. So that's my biggest critique. The other one is that they allow labs to use whatever methods they feel like it. And that's really a problem with the GMPs, which I have been arguing against for a long, long time, that they need to be specific about which methods are intended for which analyses.
I just want to chime in here. It all basically boils down to the basic question. how you basically put your specification in, what kind of test methods you're going to put in. We, as a manufacturer of ingredients, this is something which we have faced for a long time. If we are creating an extract standardized for, say, A, B, and C, what are the test methods? Are we getting the right reference standards? Are we putting them in on our specification COA? And that's where the journey starts for a pill. The raw powder, where we put our specification in, we try to get as much as possible, validated methods or validated standards, which are available either from Chromadex or USP or other repeated extra synthesis out in Europe. So you pick up those standards, you put them in your certificate of analysis or specification, and you go from there. And if this is changed in between somewhere by some arbitrary method, then the whole process actually stopped there. I mean, you just created a new quality altogether.
Right.
TJ, you were part of the whole migration of traceability during the pharmaceutical sector, kind of, 2008, from that whole process. What did you think when you first saw this? How do you think this is going to impact companies who maybe are already have these standards, but what are they going to need to do in order to manage this process more effectively from a process and technology perspective?
So I like talking about transparency, supply chain transparency, because everything falls under the bigger umbrella of supply chain transparency. What Anand and Ilan are talking about are the specifics. So one thing which fascinated me with this was the fact that this is, I think, the first time where private industry is actually putting some standards out and enforcing standards, because the other industries has always been the regulatory bodies who kind of pushed. You talk about Europe, you talk about US, in the old pharma space. It started with the California state actually having an e-pedigree mandate, which was overwritten by FDA coming out with their DSCSA laws. But this is, I guess, one of the few times where private industry, which Amazon's become so big now that they actually can kind of actually put their own rules out there, and everybody's scrambling. So short answer to that is this is not perfect from what we've seen, but I think it's a good beginning. Technology is an enabler for companies who are doing this. So what's happening now is companies are being forced to at least start collating data. It's not perfect, as both Ilan and Anand have said. It's not perfect, but with our experience in supplements the last few years, vis-a-vis what we did in pharma, we see a big difference in some companies who are doing the right thing and some companies who are not doing much, right? So for companies who are doing the right thing, this is not a big deal. They have the data, they have the information, they'll put it together and push it to Amazon. The folks who are not doing the right thing now, will it force them to toe the Amazon line and do the right thing? Not so sure, but it's a good starting point. As Ilan said, it's not perfect, but it's a good starting point. So that's where I land.
So, Anand, you, are part of practically the whole supply chain, right? Creating, formulating, internationally in Asia, importing, exporting, sourcing products from all over the world. Has this impacted you in any sort of way? Has it changed any of your operational environment? How's this impacted you guys?
Not really. What we were doing, Joe, from very beginning, for many years, that we were putting in our test methods, our methodology, we're changing from non-certified or non-validated methods, validated methods, and this is like a constant struggle. You try to find, like I find, I look for a Chinese herb, and there's no marker. People talk about, say, 4-1, 5-1, 10-1. I just scratch my head that, like, where is the marker? How I'm going to determine that this is 1-1 or 2-1 or 10-1? So this is something we do on an everyday basis.
Mm-hmm.
We find a new product, we look for the marker, and whatever the customer is asking, the specification, we try to internal develop the specification which are measurable, somewhere measurable, because I know I could see that the big writing on the wall that is just around the corner. So we were getting prepared for last 4 or 5 years. We were working very hard to really develop our own standards, put in the place, and I'm very happy. I'm looking forward that to customers who come back and ask me those standards. But it's slow, it's trickling down. But I hope that with all this steps from Amazon, things will kind of take a faster speed.
one of the key requirements is uploading a C of A from an accredited laboratory. Do you expect to see, more fraudulent C of A's? And how is that going to impact the industry? And how could we potentially do something to stop? Hey, now we had one problem. Now we just kind of close the hatch and opens up another problem as well.
To again echo Anand's statement, with exception of the requirements for an ISO lab, which has been eased because not all labs are ISO 17025, and it's not an easy process. And even if they are, they're only ISO 1705 accredited for a particular scope, which is specific to a method. So a lab can be ISO 1705 for pH testing, which means nothing about their quality around their milk fat testing or their resveratrol or their ginkgo testing. So it's that requirement went away. I get it. The rest of the requirements are stuff that companies like CFAM has been doing all along, and other companies in this industry, the good ones, do these things. It's regular practice. So it's not asking a lot. It's basically saying, okay, let's take what you're already doing and now put it somewhere else. So the upload process is a bit of a cumbersome ordeal. I understand it. But again, all the good companies out there are ready to do this. They just need to know how and where to put the stuff. If these requirements make you take a gasp of air, that could be a cue that it's time for you to switch industries. Because if you've been sliding under the radar for all this time, the FDA is going to catch up and find out that your quality system basically sucks. The other aspect to this is, yes, companies are going to be needing to deploy their C of A's at a rate never seen before. To date, the majority of our clients basically put our C of A's in a drawer of a mid-level quality assurance employee, never to be seen again unless an audit requires them. To me, it's been marketing gold that's been tucked away forever. So I think C of A should be shared from the mountaintop. You should be proud of the quality of your material. You should be proud of the labs you're using. You should be sharing that as well. If you can't, start to change labs. And back to your question, yeah, that's going to increase the counterfeit C of A's, which is something I never kind of predicted in our business was going to be a thing, but it is absolutely a thing. We have an ongoing email string with our lawyers. Every month we're finding new counterfeit C of A's of ours. Customers are asking if this is a legit C of A. We're responding to them, no, it's not. We've got all sorts of little tricks in our C of A that most of the counterfeit folks don't know yet. But that said, it's a huge opportunity for groups like TagOne with TJ to help solve this problem, to give the C of A's a chance to be secure, so that anyone's not just grabbing them from a website, changing them and uploading to Amazon, who would really never know if it's a legit C of A or not. And then again, just passes through these gates and right on back on the website, crappy products for sale again.
Yeah. So TJ, how do you think blockchain could potentially minimize fraudulent C of A's? And also, where's the opportunity, right, for companies that are doing it right to say, hey, we're already doing it right. How can we leverage that as we engage consumers and retailers to talk about the quality of their products and the quality of their testing?
Yes. So when we when we heard this a few months back, when the whole thing started off, we kind of was scratching our heads and say, okay, this actually is a fantastic opportunity for us, because we as TagOne, what are we trying to do? We are trying to solve a supply chain transparency problem from seed to sale. Actually, we don't even call it seed to sale anymore. It's to consumer, right? We're trying to make sure that the consumer is safe and they have the right kind of data when they buy a product. And we're working with both of you guys in different ways, both Anand and Ilan. So coming back to the first question, so let's talk about the first part, which is around branding. Our thinking was, when you're actually collating all this data, then why would you not use it to brand yourself, to Ilan's point, right? Because if you're putting so much effort trying to put this data electronically, be it your C of A's or your manufacturing, certification, or even your pictures, why wouldn't you use it to brand yourself, right? It's a fantastic opportunity. Customers are clamoring for this information. I personally would like to see this information. And when I go out to buy, I'm willing to pay extra money. And so I'm sure all of us, especially our 15-year-olds and our 18-year-olds and our 25-year-olds, right? So for us, this was a big opportunity, saying that, guys, if you're spending so much of time doing this already for Amazon, use it for other things, use it for branding, use our QR code solution, somebody else's if somebody has a better solution, but use it to brand yourself. That's number one. So we think it's a huge opportunity for companies to use this data, use this information to brand themselves better. Coming back to the first question, which is around security, that's more of us being the geeks we are, which is something we like, how do you protect the supply chain? Because at the end of the day, I keep saying this. I mean, as we put data together in the supply chain to drive transparency, it's only as good as the data you put in. So we are always trying to protect the data going in using technologies, which is where blockchain comes in. So when you talk about these fraudulent COAs, blockchain is a fantastic opportunity for us to make sure that when Elon, or let's say Anand CFAM's COA is kind of produced by Elon's lab, it's basically goes into a specific, it's defined by a specific hash which cannot be counterfeited, cannot be changed. So what happens there is nobody can actually go out and make any changes to this document. If they do make any change, do use one of those fancy PDF editors, the hash will right away break, which means as a consumer who's going to go in and vet this COA, or anybody else at FDA is coming in and vetting this, they'll right away see as a part of the audit that this COA has been tampered with. It's a very easy solution. Blockchain is fantastic. It's a very simple use case of blockchain. It's not one of those complicated use cases where blockchain is making airplanes fly. It's not one of those ones. This is a very simple, obvious one which you can absolutely use right away.
Love it. I think that's something that certainly should be explored. I think it's going to be needed sooner rather than later. So, quick question for you guys. One of the components that's required is a letter from a contract manufacturer, right? Any initial thoughts on this? Elon, what's your interpretation of that? Does it even make sense? If people are doing it internally, is it kind of like we didn't know what else to do, so let's do this? Like, how did you react to that requirement?
The quality in this industry spans the best to the worst. And so there's a lot of companies who I would trust with the letter. There's another bunch of companies who the letters just means worth the paper it's on. And
Right.
so, anyone could write anything, anyone could Photoshop anything. And again, I don't think Amazon has the capacity to really review these things. They're a tech company and they got, algorithms for days and whatever is necessary to review these documents, but it still comes to some human reviewing a chromatogram or an HPLC or something like that, as well as these letters. So I just don't know that we can trust all of the letters. So again, I'm skeptical, but that's my position in this industry. It's verify, then trust. Verify twice and then trust, in fact.
Yep. Anand, how about you?
I would say it's a good step. I remember the days back in say 10 years back, we were writing statements or we declare this product's pure. But that's the right step. You started basically binding yourself somewhere. And then the next question comes, how are you gonna basically back up your words, statement? So we took the first statement, then we're gonna go, okay, XYZ manufacturer says that we are following GMP. Now you have something in writing in front of you. Now you can always go back and connect the dots together. Okay, where's your GMP certificate? The GMP was granted you under what? It's CFR 111, 117. Who certified you? Is certification valid till today? Do you have any 483s? Do you have any warning letters? So, it's a very good first step. I think down the line, what we are looking, on a larger scale, that we create some kind of token, some kind of a unit which is non-mutable. Once you change that piece of information, it's basically noted somewhere. Once you have that piece of information, so I think it's a good step that we put the first step towards the direction. We got the first piece of information, and then this is gonna. I hope it's gonna just be forever. It's just gonna stay there, and people will be held responsible for writing what they're writing today.
TJ, any thoughts?
I was going to ask a question, guys. So again, from a discussion point of view, at this point of time, how big is the traffic through Amazon? If I had to kind of look at a percentage with in the supplements industry, the reason I say that is obvious, right? As they keep getting bigger, they'll have more clout and they'll start asking for more details. So does anyone know as to what the first number is right now?
I don't have a number, but when these requirements first came out, we had a deluge of companies calling us and emailing, asking for interesting things. And as I understand it, they rolled it out to big companies first with a certain revenue. And these, companies like Now Foods and big companies that do the right thing in our industry were in that first category, which tells you the size of these companies. So we got calls and emails from people asking if we can do GMIP testing and test for SOPs. I mean, these are companies who met the qualifications of being big enough to be first, along with Now Foods as an example of top tier. But they didn't know what GMIPs were and GMPs, and they didn't know what SOPs were, SOPs. They basically asking us can you do SOP testing? I mean, that
That's
tells you how
fascinating.
much they didn't know, but how big they were to still qualify for the first round. So they're selling millions and millions and millions of dollars of product through Amazon every day without knowing what an SOP is.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Wow.
So-
I think, given the last year's tailwind to the e-commerce, I think the number have really grown some crazy, amount of transactions. So, what we were thinking a year back is everything changed in the last 1 year, and in Q1 of this year, that the numbers must be staggering.
Because the reason I'm going to go back to the question Joe asked me, because every industry goes through this whole the cycle, right? There's a cycle in which, and pharma's gone through it, retail to some extent went through it, supplements has gone through it. We've kind of banged our heads against the walls against those other companies which don't do the things right, as people, as supply chain consultants, as transparency consultants, where we were going in and trying to do the right things. For them, the push wasn't there, right? I mean, either the consumer pushes you or FDA pushes you. This came from the left. I mean, this came on the left field. I mean, Amazon. So the thing is, this kind of starts. I keep talking about this. Every industry starts this whole momentum, and there's a threshold value which you hit, after which things take off. It's so in my simple mind, I see Amazon kicking that off the way California did this with pharma, because FDA was dragging its feet for a long time around the pharma traceability. If California came out and said, we'll put a law and we'll put a date. And if companies want to sell in California, and that time we're joking that California is the world's fifth largest economy. So if big pharma companies need to sell in California, they have to toe the line. They have to do the right thing. So companies are investing. Similarly, if Amazon is going to be the big boy in the room, like California was in 2005, for whenever 2007 was when the e-particular law went into, then people will have to take notice. I mean, we'll figure out what they're doing wrong. They'll be caught somewhere. Elon and Anand, hopefully they will. The companies are doing wrong, but at least they'll be forced to think on these lines, that we have to do the right things. We'll have to get good product. We'll have to get the testing done. We'll have to store the testing. We'll have to drive more transparency. So that's where I'm going, because, and I think this is a good first step for supplements, because they are being forced, at least from somebody which is good, which is not FDA for a change. This is somebody else, but somebody really big and relevant.
And we have all the rules and all the guidelines, and everything is already in place. I mean, just look at the guidelines, look at the CFR, everything is defined, everything is right there. It's just a lack of enforcement.
That's right.
That's the one thing. So I think it is good that it came from one of the largest industry partners to basically force people to do the right thing and just follow the rules. As simple as that.
Totally agree.
To jump on what Anand said about following the rules, if everyone just basically tested the right way, not just tested, but tested the right way, we wouldn't have any quality issues in this industry at all. And I say the right way, Anand mentioned that everything's written in the CFR, correct, with exception, and this is my opinion from our lab's perspective, that they didn't tell you what methods to use. So you can still deploy incorrect, not fit for purpose testing methods on analysis, which are basically too general. An example would be using a method specific to green plants to confirm that you have ginkgo and not ashwagandha root. But if you're just looking at, is it a green plant, you can't say what plant it is. So there's methods being deployed where they're so zoomed out analytically that they really can't specify species, but they're being used daily. The FDA does not have enough agents on the ground to enforce it. And the industry is using an appeal to ignorance, that they said, do testing. We did testing. Here's all the results. Here's our training records. Here's a calibration report on this equipment that is not fit for purpose for this test, but they qualified for all the proper check marks, and out goes the product. Now, we don't have a lot of bad scares in this industry of recalls or adverse events or deaths, or there's magnitudes more deaths for pharmaceutical products, which have go through way more product testing and quality than our industry does, obviously, than herbs. That's a fact. Obviously, there's different scales. But the fact is, if we just tested the right way, there would be no problems in this industry. Amazon's efforts are moving towards that. There's more testing going to be happening now. More companies not doing anything who will be doing something. And I still believe something is always better than nothing.
Yeah, I think it's a great start. So do you guys see, I think that's a good, potential repercussion. Do you guys see any other repercussions, good or bad, that may be coming from this new policy change?
I think this will definitely push everybody towards the most basic question which we have, which Shilan was just mentioning, that finally putting all the monographs in place. We are using, biological word is very complex. You have one plant with 9 actives. All the actives are doing different works, and people are launching products based on those actives. So plant A has got, you know, active one and I'm using for something else, and same plant have active B, I'm using something else. They both have a complete different testing methodology. So it's time, it's time for us to sit down as industry, look outside to USP or AOSE or even I would say a lot of responsibility lies with responsible labs like Alchemist out there to actually share the methods or standards or tell people this is how we test it. And I think Iran is doing a great job on that. I've seen his new format for COA. It's really beautiful. I mean, I love it because the earlier one I can read very very carefully. I mean, I love the past, all those geeking out stuff. But the new ones are simple. They're straightforward. They tell you what they test, what they're putting it out there, how it's passing. So it's extraordinarily complex word. I mean, I know I've studied plant molecules, plant chemistry, in and out, and it's amazingly complex. Same plant can produce different chemicals given different water and sun exposure. It's crazy. So to understand that, to really get into the bottom of it, we have to use all our resources. Fortunately, we have enough experience. Disha was came in 1993. We have a lot of many years of experience of using these herbs in our day-to-day things. So we have enough experience. We have enough data to actually go and figure out what method to use, what standards to use. Of course, there'll be a lot of unknowns out there, but at least to start somewhere.
Yep. TJ, do you see any major repercussions of this?
Still, I'm hoping that it's going to help drive the change, which is the push, which is the pull thing, which is where FD or other people, they don't have the bandwidth right now to worry about supplements, as you guys said, because you have something like the fresh food, the fresh produce industry, which don't have a kill step, right? People worry about Roman lettuce killing people or cantaloupes killing people. For them, that's high priority, right? Or some meat issue. With supplements, I feel over the coming years will have to get better organized, because as you guys know more than me, there are a lot of players who aren't doing the right thing. Because it's not killing people doesn't mean nothing bad's it's gonna be the same status quo next 5 years. So I keep saying this. I don't want bad things to happen, but it just takes one bad thing for the industry to kind of implode. So I'll just leave it there, and I'm hoping, because I've seen some other industries where people have waited till the extreme end, and sometimes it's become too late for individual companies to step up and make the change, because it was too late, because they don't have the time or the resources or the money to make the change to improve the supply chain, improve operations, and etc. etc. So I'll just leave it there.
So all of you guys operate globally. How do you see this impacting the global, dietary supplement ingredients, changing hands, importing, exporting? Any big changes on that side?
For us, it's going to make a big change because we have been trying to reduce our supplier base. We do not really have 200, 300, 400 suppliers. So we are trying to really reduce our base. And then this is a big push for us to actually stick to our repeated manufacturers, people who have track records, people who have long-term quality things to show to us, background, all the certification, especially companies to whom we actually have visited and really audited them in past. So that's actually going to shrink my supplier base. I'm just pushing it a little harder now to not to buy from everybody out there. And it's a huge change, because this will definitely drive my cost up, because I'm not actually looking for the lowest dollar out there. But at the same time, I understand, and I'll try to convince to my buyers that if you're looking for a quality, and if you're looking for traceability down to the level of farmers, this is the only way to go. So I hope that, and this is a huge change for us. We are going to actually invest more on actually knowing our suppliers and actually start looking at doing a physical audit to them down the line.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is like, what's cost, right? Like you may see a dollar number. However, you're going to sleep a lot better at night and knowing you've got the right products, the right ingredients, everything's properly tested. When you submit it to this location, it's going to get approved. You're alleviating risk. There's a cost to that too, to know that you can, and as TJ talked about before, now you can market that, right? Like now you know that you've got the best ingredients. So kind of close with a question for each of you, just to kind of work around. Starting with you, TJ, how do you think this new policy will shape the future of the dietary supplement industry?
So I'm hoping that it changes behavior. It changes behavior around what Anand talked about, what Ilan talked about. The few good companies will thrive; they'll do better. But the others who have been getting away with, I won't say murder, but not the right things which they've been doing. Hopefully, they'll have to basically do the right things. They can get away with some wrong things up front because we talked about fudged CFAs. But finally, I believe it's going to force people to do the right thing. So the industry should start moving in the right direction, get cleaned up.
Anand?
I would say this will push us to a greater level of transparency. And what I always feel that there's a disconnect between ingredient manufacturer, supplier, contract manufacturer, and the brand owner. Most of the time, actually, I don't know my ingredients are going where. I mean, I sell some generic products, but I don't know in 100% cases that where it's been used. So maybe this will force everybody to be a little bit more transparent, and that will bring in a lot of data in place. And as I always say, that we trust each other, but where's the data?
Yeah.
Ilan?
So obviously more products are being sold in this industry because of COVID, and also now more products are being tested because more are being sold. And then with Amazon showing up, doing these new regs, more products are being tested. Again, these are companies who probably weren't testing at all, or some that were, but doing bare minimum, and now they're doing more. I suspect that these behaviors will catch on, and the other retailers who sell products by the billions every year will probably watch closely and see how this goes, and then adjust their own requirements to sell at Whole Foods or CVS or whatever it is. I mean, Amazon's obviously the leader on the online. Ultimately, moving quality in the right direction in this industry. And as I mentioned, kind of snarkily, that if this is a challenge for you, go find another industry, because this one has been maturing since the day I entered it, and it's getting better and better and better every year. Product quality is getting better. It's the adherence to the regulations. Amazon's actions just woke up a lot of companies who never even went to a trade show or participated with CRN or APA or any other trade associations. They've flown under the radar all these years, and that doesn't happen anymore. So product quality will improve. Bad companies will slowly disappear, and it's absolutely for the benefit of the consumer.
Totally agree. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today and joining the roundtable. Special thanks goes out to Vita Foods for their support, and to our guests today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great day, everybody.